Welcome back for another deep dive. We're tackling some pretty thought-provoking stuff today. Excerpts from Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You, all about the sneaky ways we sabotage ourselves. It's like we're gearing up for a climb up a mountain of self-improvement. And trust me, this terrain can get pretty tricky.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Most people think of self-sabotage as this big dramatic thing, like a sudden crash and burn.
Right, like hitting a wall.
Yeah, exactly. But what Wiest does so well is break it down. Show how self-sabotage can be really subtle, even disguised as these positive habits we have.
Okay, so we're talking about self-sabotage in disguise.
Right.
What kind of masks are we talking about here? What's it hiding behind?
Well, you can take perfectionism, for example. On the surface, it seems like striving for excellence, right? Always pushing to do your best. But underneath, it can be driven by this intense fear of failure.
Yeah.
A fear that's so strong that you end up procrastinating, or you never even start the project.
Oh, I've totally been there. You get so overwhelmed by needing to get it perfect that you just freeze up before you even begin.
Exactly. And it's not just individual tasks either. This fear can seep into bigger life choices. Like the book talks about uprooting.
Uprooting?
Yeah, it's this pattern of constantly changing jobs, relationships, even cities, almost like you're running from something.
So instead of facing a challenge head on, you just keep hitting that reset button.
It can be a way of avoiding deeper issues, for sure. It's easier to just start fresh than to actually confront the real problems, to do the messy work of growing and changing. And what's really interesting is that even pride can be a form of self-sabotage.
Pride? Wait, you mean like having a healthy sense of self-worth? How does that become self-sabotage?
It's more about clinging to situations that are no longer serving you, just because admitting defeat would hurt your ego.
I see.
So think about staying at a dead-end job or an unhappy relationship just because you don't want to look like a quitter. You're basically prioritizing appearances over your own well-being.
Wow, that's a real eye-opener. So how do we start spotting these sneaky little saboteurs in our own lives?
Well, Wiest argues that those bad habits, the patterns we keep repeating, they're actually trying to send us a message.
Okay.
They're like smoke signals pointing us towards those unmet needs
Yeah.
and hidden truths we might be ignoring. It's about learning to decode those signals.
Decoding the signals. Okay, let's dive into that a bit. Give us an example of one of these smoke signals and what it might be trying to tell us.
Sure. So take overworking, for example. It might look like dedication and ambition on the surface.
Right. Working hard, getting things done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if it's actually a way of avoiding difficult emotions? Like you're numbing yourself with busyness.
Yeah.
Instead of confronting what's really going on underneath.
So it's not just about being productive. It's about what you might be avoiding by staying constantly busy. Interesting. What about always needing validation from others?
Ah, that one. That could be a sign of lacking self-love. You're seeking that external approval to try and fill a void inside.
Makes sense.
Or think about overspending. Sometimes that's an attempt to fill an emotional hole with material possessions. The key is to look beyond the behavior itself and ask, what deeper need might this be masking?
So it's about getting brutally honest with ourselves. Are we willing to look beyond the surface and face those uncomfortable truths?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is where the real work begins. Wiest points out that the voice of truth is often pretty quiet. It's easily drowned out by all the shouts of fear and insecurity. It takes real self-awareness to tune in and actually decipher those messages.
I can see how that would be challenging, especially when we're bombarded with so much external noise and pressure these days. I mean, our feelings can be so intense. Sometimes they're so convincing. It's like, how do you even tell the difference?
This is where understanding the difference between your gut instinct and those fleeting feelings comes in. You see, your gut instinct is a powerful tool for making decisions in the present moment, but it's not designed for predicting the future or dwelling on anxieties about what might happen. If you let those anxieties hijack your gut feeling, you're likely distorting the message.
So if my gut is screaming, run, because I'm terrified of giving a presentation, that might not be the best guide for my action.
Exactly. It's about learning to stay grounded in the present moment, to assess the situation clearly, without letting fear take over.
Okay, so how do we avoid letting those fears run the show when we're trying to make those big decisions? Or break free from those self-sabotaging patterns?
The book suggests really tuning in to the voice that's calm, not the one that's fueled by fear. Notice that the voice is offering solutions or just creating more problems. And most importantly, listen to the voice that feels loving and supportive, rather than scared or critical.
So it's like having an inner cheerleader instead of an inner critic.
Precisely. Would you talk to a friend the way you sometimes talk to yourself?
Probably not.
If not, It might be time to reframe that inner dialogue. We've unmasked the saboteur. We're starting to decode those messages our habits are sending. But how do we actually start climbing this mountain of self-improvement? Because sometimes it feels like one step forward, two steps back.
Yeah. What's the best approach to actually making lasting change? It seems like taking those small steps is key to making real progress toward our goals, rather than trying to overhaul everything at once.
Absolutely. It's about building momentum. Creating a sense of accomplishment that fuels further growth. Instead of trying to climb the entire mountain in one go, focus on conquering that first base camp.
Okay, give us an example of what that might look like in real life.
Sure. So let's say your goal is to work less and achieve a better work-life balance.
Yeah.
Instead of drastically cutting your hours or quitting your job outright, which could create more stress and anxiety, start by leaving the office 15 minutes earlier each day.
So it's about easing yourself into the change rather than making a radical shift.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to other habits. If you want to exercise more, start with a 15-minute walk a few times a week, instead of committing to this intense daily workout routine that you're likely to abandon.
It's about setting realistic goals and building on those successes, but even those small steps can feel challenging when we're stepping outside of our comfort zone.
That's true. But here's the thing, growth happens outside of that comfort zone. Embrace those moments of discomfort as signs that you're pushing yourself to evolve. It's not about avoiding discomfort altogether. It's about learning to manage it and reframe it as a necessary part of the process.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. We're not just trying to eliminate self-sabotaging behaviors, we're developing a whole new approach to personal growth. But I can't help but wonder, how do we ensure that these changes stick? How do we move from simply understanding self-sabotage to actually overcoming it in a lasting way?
That's where it gets really interesting. Wiest introduces this concept that completely shifts our perspective. Instead of focusing on resisting negative patterns, she encourages us to actively invite our best selves into the picture.
So it's not about fighting against the bad, but inviting in the good. How do we do that?
She suggests a powerful exercise. Are you familiar with the pink elephant problem?
Oh, absolutely. You tell yourself not to think about something, and it's all you can think about. It's like a mental boomerang.
Precisely. And that's why simply trying to suppress negative thoughts or habits often backfires. Instead, we suggest having a conversation with your future self.
My future self. That sounds intriguing.
Visualize your future self in detail. What are they wearing? How do they carry themselves? What kind of energy do they radiate? Now engage in a conversation with this version of you. Ask them for guidance. Imagine them giving you exactly what you want, a sense of peace, a fulfilling career, a loving relationship, whatever it may be.
I can see how this would be a powerful exercise. You're not just suppressing the negative, you're actively creating a vision of the positive.
Exactly. It's about harnessing the power of visualization to create a mental blueprint for the person you want to become. And the book connects this to the idea that we already operate with multiple selves. Think about how you act differently around your friends versus your family versus your colleagues. This exercise is about tapping into that highest potential self, the one who's already within you, waiting to emerge.
It's like we're choosing which version of ourselves we want to bring to the forefront, but I also want to be realistic. I mean, achieving inner peace, becoming our best selves, those are lifelong journeys, right? It's not like we reach the summit and suddenly everything's perfect.
You're absolutely right. Wiest makes a clear distinction between happiness, which is fleeting and dependent on external circumstances, and inner peace, which is the state of calm and control that transcends those external fluctuations. Reaching the summit doesn't mean life becomes effortless. It means you've developed the tools to navigate challenges with greater awareness and resilience.
So it's about recognizing that even when we've made significant progress, there will still be ups and downs. It's about how we handle those inevitable challenges.
Exactly. You'll still experience moments of self-sabotage, but you'll be better equipped to recognize it, learn from it, and course correct. It's about progress, not perfection.
That's a much more empowering perspective. Instead of aiming for some unattainable ideal, we're focusing on continuous growth and learning. This makes me think about one of those key distinctions we talked about earlier, the difference between gut instinct and those fleeting feelings.
It's all connected, isn't it? Understanding those distinctions, learning to decode the messages our habits are sending, and visualizing our best selves are all essential tools for navigating this terrain.
It seems like one of the most important skills we can develop on this journey is resilience.
You've hit the nail on the head. Wiest reminds us that even with all the tools and insights we gain, there will be times when we falter. We might make choices that don't align with our best selves, or we might fall back into old familiar patterns.
So how do we deal with those moments when we stumble? It's easy to get discouraged and feel like we're back at square one.
That's where self-compassion comes in. It's about recognizing that we're all human. We all make mistakes. But the crucial difference now is that we're no longer operating from a place of ignorance.
We have deeper understanding of ourselves and the patterns we're trying to break.
Exactly. We have the awareness to recognize those missteps, the compassion to forgive ourselves, and the resilience to get back on track. It's like having a map and compass. Even if we occasionally stray from the path, we have the tools to find our way back.
Okay, that's a really helpful analogy. But even with those tools, I can see how it would be easy to get lost in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture. How do we stay focused on the journey and keep that momentum going?
That's where the importance of support comes in. Wiest emphasizes surrounding ourselves with people who encourage our growth and challenge us to be our best selves. Having that external support can be invaluable.
So it's not just about our internal work, it's about who we choose to surround ourselves with. What kind of people should we be looking for?
Look for people who inspire you, challenge you, and support your growth. People who believe in you, even when you're doubting yourself. And just as importantly, be mindful of those who might unknowingly enable your self-sabotaging tendencies.
Sometimes our loved ones with the best of intentions can inadvertently reinforce those old patterns. So it's about being discerning about who we let into our inner circle. This is making me think back to that concept of building a fulfilling life based on our values.
It all ties together, doesn't it? The self-awareness, the honesty, the willingness to embrace discomfort, the commitment to ongoing growth, and the cultivation of self-compassion. All of these qualities contribute to creating a life that's aligned with our truest selves.
It seems like the journey itself is just as important as reaching the destination.
Absolutely. And remember, even when we reach the summit of this particular mountain, the journey doesn't end there. There will always be new peaks to climb, new challenges to overcome, new lessons to learn.
So it's not about achieving some static state of perfection, but about embracing the ongoing process of growth and evolution.
Precisely. The summit is simply a marker along the path of becoming the best versions of ourselves. It's about what we do with the view from the top. That truly matters.
You've given us a lot to think about. We've explored the subtle ways self-sabotage shows up in our lives, learned to decode those hidden messages, and even started to envision our best selves. Now I'm curious to explore how we can take all of these insights and translate them into tangible action. How do we move from understanding to actually creating a life that reflects this newfound self-awareness? So we've spent this whole deep dive exploring this mountain of self-sabotage. We've learned to recognize those sneaky patterns, those habits that hold us back. And we've even started to visualize ourselves reaching the summit, actually achieving our goals. But now comes the exciting part, taking all those insights and putting them into practice in our daily lives, like we've been handed this amazing blueprint, and now it's time to start building.
You've captured it perfectly. The source material reminds us that conquering self-sabotage, it's not a passive process. It requires conscious effort, consistent action, and a willingness to keep learning and growing.
Right. It's not enough to just understand the concepts. We need to actually apply them. But where do we even begin? It can feel a little overwhelming to think about all the possibilities.
It's understandable to feel that way. We're so used to operating from a place of self-doubt and limitations, But remember, we've already started to shift that perspective by recognizing those patterns and visualizing our best selves. Now it's about taking those concrete steps to bridge that gap between where we are and where we want to be.
Okay, so what's the first step in building that bridge?
Wiest suggests starting with a deep dive into our core values. These are the guiding principles that shape our beliefs and actions, the things that truly matter to us in our core. What do you stand for? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
It's about getting clear on what truly motivates us, what gives our lives meaning and purpose. I can see how that would provide a solid foundation for making decisions and setting goals.
Exactly. Once you have a firm grasp of your values, you can start making choices that align with them. This applies to everything, from your career path to your relationships, to the way you spend your free time. When your actions are in harmony with your values, you create this sense of internal alignment that fuels your motivation and empowers you to overcome obstacles.
It's like having this internal compass that guides you in the right direction, even when you encounter those inevitable challenges. But even when we're clear on our values, that pesky fear of failure can still creep in. How do we deal with those voices of self-doubt that whisper, what if it doesn't work out? Or what if you're not good enough?
Ah, those voices. They're often rooted in fear and insecurity, not reality. And remember, we've been practicing recognizing and reframing those self-sabotaging thoughts. The key is to acknowledge those fears without letting them dictate your choices.
I can see how that would take practice, especially when those fears have been holding us back for so long.
It does. And Wiest offers a powerful reframing technique. Instead of dwelling on the potential for failure, shift your focus to the possibility of success. Imagine yourself achieving those goals, experiencing those joys, making that positive impact. Visualize it in vivid detail, and let those positive emotions fuel your actions.
It's like we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. By believing in ourselves and our abilities, we're more likely to actually achieve those things.
Exactly. And remember, the journey itself is part of the reward. Embrace the challenges, the setbacks, the unexpected detours. They're all opportunities for learning growth and resilience.
It's about shifting our perspective, from viewing challenges as failures to seeing them as opportunities for growth.
Precisely. And one of the most powerful ways to sustain that momentum and navigate those challenges is to surround yourself with a supportive community.
We've talked about this before, the importance of having those cheerleaders in our corner, the people who believe in us and our vision.
It goes beyond just emotional support. It's about finding mentors, collaborators, and accountability partners who can offer guidance, feedback, and encouragement along the way.
It's like we're all climbing our own mountains, but we don't have to do it alone. We can learn from each other's experiences and support each other through those difficult climbs.
Exactly. And when we share our journeys with others, we not only gain valuable support, but we also inspire and uplift those around us. It creates this ripple effect of positive transformation.
I love that image. So we've unmasked the saboteur, we've decoded the messages, we've reached the summit, and now we're building something incredible with a view from the top. It's been an amazing journey, but I can't help but wonder what happens next. Is this the end of the story?
That's a wonderful question, and one that the source material intentionally leaves open-ended. The truth is, the journey of self-discovery and growth never truly ends. There will always be new mountains to climb, new challenges to overcome, and new lessons to learn.
So it's not about reaching some final destination, but about embracing the ongoing adventure of becoming.
Precisely. And as we continue on this path, equipped with the tools and insights we've gained, we become not just conquerors of self-sabotage, but architects of our own destinies, creators of lives filled with purpose, meaning, and joy. And that, my friend, is a truly breathtaking view.
As we wrap up this deep dive into The Mountain Is You, let's remember that the mountain isn't meant to defeat us. It's an invitation to rise. It's a call to discover our strength, our resilience, and our limitless potential. And with each step we take, with each challenge we overcome, we carve a path not just to the summit, but to the most authentic and fulfilling version of ourselves.
And on that note, we leave you with this final thought. What will you create with the incredible view from the top of your mountain?